So yes, here we are, Romford Film Festival, Romford Horror Film Festival 2024. As you guys all know, I love to get some interviews and whatnot remotely from people who aren't necessarily going to be at the festival. I like to sit down and still promote them a little bit, talk about the films a little bit, and this one's a special one for me because this was shouldn't really say this when the video is going to be going out. But this is one of my favorites, I have to say. We have to watch everything, and of all the shorts, Sandra Gets a New Fringe is one that I hope everybody just checks out because it's so much fun in all the best ways. So I'm here with co-directors Penelope, I was going to say Yeulet, but apparently it's Yeulet. I am sorry for that. And Michael Beddoes, the co-directors of Sandra Gets a New Fringe, which is showing at the film festival on Friday at 6 p.m., which I believe is the 30th. Come along and watch this movie. Watch all the movies, of course, but let's get into talking to the creators, the co-directors, and Penelope, you were the lead actress as well.
Yeah, I wrote it too.
Yeah. So let's start right at the start before we get into the short movie. Obviously, we're not going to go back to our birth or anything like that, but let's how did we get into this mad film industry? What was the path into it for you guys?
Okay, I'll go first, I suppose. So I had been acting from like a really young age because it was like theatre, like drama groups were a very cheap way of my parents getting me out of the house. And as like an irritating, like ADHD riddled child, I think they just wanted rid of me, and it was like £1.50 or something for them to send me to this drama group. And so then I just kind of kept doing that, and then I tried to do film production at university, and it will come as no surprise to anyone that knows me. I ended up having to quit because I couldn't stop arguing with the tutors. And so I didn't even see it out the full year. But if you're student finance, no, I didn't. I didn't go. And then, yeah, I've just been like acting since, and then decided I just had one too many like bad auditions. I was like, I just need to start writing stuff, and then started writing, and yeah, have somehow cobbled my way through things.
And how did the collaboration with Michael come along?
So we knew each other from like a friend of a friend from like Twitter, like over kind of, I think it was lockdown, because of a pilot that I had written, and we like connected over that. And then when this like opportunity came around, and the BFI had said to me that they wouldn't, like I needed to basically have a co-director. They wouldn't fund me if I was to direct it on my own, if I also wanted to act in it. And obviously, as a narcissist, I can't not be in front of the screen.
You wrote something. So.
So, yeah.
And Michael, from your side, your journey into the business and bumping into this lady and coming up with this random short.
I've always been a fan of like films and comedy. That was my way in. My way in was sort of being a nerdy little kid in like a not brilliant neighborhood in the West Midlands. So you don't go out a lot because you can't. So you stay in, and your telly becomes sort of one of your best friends. And therefore you're watching all sorts, from British independents to all the way through to the big genre stuff, because I grew up in the sort of late 80s, early 90s, sort of the rich time for all those brilliant genre films. But I'd never thought I could do it because I remember this because I actually had it. I was speaking about it with someone the other day, and that was, I remember a careers advisor saying, "Oh, you want to make TV, you want to make films? Well, people from around here, we don't really do that." So I kind of stopped doing it. I still wrote little stories, and I still sort of dreamed and loved movies. But I actually went to do journalism at uni, thinking I could become a critic, so I could be like film adjacent, and it's still writing. But while I was there, I also realised all the undergrad film students, they all want to be auteur superstar directors, and no one wants to produce. So I started producing for them, sort of ad hoc. organizing logistics. And because of that, I'll cut the story right down. An American TV producer that I had a chance encounter with saw something in what I'd been doing. Sort of every Saturday for like a month while he was not in America shooting, we'd go to the local cafe and he'd give me sort of TV producing 101. And then he wrote an amazing letter that got me onto a master's at Royal Holloway with an unconditional offer, even though I hadn't done film as my undergraduate. So I thank him a lot. And I did that master's, and then I just started making shorts as a producer, and then moved back into writing. So it sort of went full circle.
Amazing. And you know what? Like, the producing role is one of those roles that I didn't know a lot about. And like you say, everybody wanted to be the director or the actor or anything like that. And I'm cool that I'm pleased that there's guys like you that push that sort of side of things in the producer, because we need them basically. Without them, it doesn't get done really. But one of the things that you just mentioned a second ago, Penelope, was about BFI funding, and I did want to just quickly ask a little bit about that. How did that come about, and how did you get there? Because I'm sure many young filmmakers out there, they would love a little bit of an idea of how that works.
Yeah. So I think it was mainly because I was like a known quantity to BFI, because I had, and a lot of it does come down to kind of like luck. I don't want to claim to be like exceptionally talented or more hardworking than anyone else, because that's just not true. But someone I knew posted that the BFI, the deadline for this talent scheme called the Script Development Program, was like coming to an end. And I had just cobbled together this stupid idea in my notes app for this like film about a woman who gets a new Fringe and nobody notices. And I was like, oh, well, like, just do it anyway. Like, it doesn't matter. What's the worst that's going to happen? They're going to say no. And then fortunately, I managed to get onto the Script Development Program, which was this like free, like 6-week course or something, where they were basically talking about how to write a short. And then you wrote this short and you got to work with a script editor. And so I wrote this on that and worked with a brilliant script editor called Jessica Jones. And then they then kind of had meetings with the talent executive and, were like, oh, are you going to submit for funding? And I was like, well, yes, obviously. And kind of going through that process of then finding a producer and getting the application ready and submitting it. But I think I wouldn't have got the funding if they didn't already know who I was, and I hadn't already had those like meetings with the talent executives. So like they were aware of me as a writer and like someone from that particular hub, because at the time I was living in the Midlands, and so it was the Midlands hub. So yeah, I guess it's kind of hard to be able to say like to replicate that, because it's to be like, oh, go on this one scheme and then you'll do this other thing. Like obviously nothing is guaranteed, but that was my personal journey.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, but it's good for people kind of hear how these kind of things work and how people sort of like, as you say, lock into it. But don't sell yourself short, because we're going to talk about Sandra Gets a New Fringe, and there's clearly a hell of a lot of talent on the writing side there. There's a hell of a lot of talent on the acting side, because I'm just going to say it now, Sandra's like probably my new favorite character. She's awesome, and I want to go for a drink with her sometime. But there's a lot of talent there. But where did you said you were scribbling in your notebook and had little ideas? But where did the seed for Sandra Gets a New Fringe? Where did that come from?
I think I was watching like an advert on TV, and it was someone getting their like, it was one of those for like hair dye or something, but it was all very swooshy and like the hair was the main part of it. I can't remember exactly. And it just got me thinking about, because at the time I had also been looking at like these clothes on like ASOS and telling myself these stories of like, if I just had that dress, then I would be a person that owned that dress, and I would become this entirely new version of myself, and everything that's wrong with me would suddenly be fixed because I owned this dress. It's only going to cost like 40 quid. Just spend the 40 quid to get the new dress. And so the kind of thinking about those things, it was like, oh, I wonder, because that happens with hair. Like when you get a new haircut, you're like, I'm going to be a person that has this new brilliant hair. I'm going to have a fringe and everyone's going to notice, and they're going to know that this is like the new version of me. And then, of course, you get the new Fringe or you get the new dress, and nobody cares because nobody thinks about you as much as you think about you. And I just thought it was really funny, this idea of someone getting something and it being like the pinnacle of their existence and it not mattering to anybody else, but then they're making it matter to everybody else.
So when did the horror aspect come into it? Or yeah, the horror aspect, we'll call it.
I mean, it kind of felt like there was no other way for it to end, because unfortunately, like, and as my dentist has said, I'm a very violent woman. And so therefore it was only going to go in one direction. And it felt like to do anything else with it other than she gets the new Fringe, nobody notices, and for it not to end in like a bloodbath and horrific violence felt like the payoff for me personally would not have been there. And obviously, as we have established, it's all about me and what I want.
So Michael, how did you take to this script when you read it and when you got a hold of this and we pitched it?
If I remember rightly, Penny, I think you sent it to me with me looking to produce at one point, very early doors, I think. Like, and you can correct me here. And I think I was like, I love this. It was just like bizarre and weird and funny. And I was in for producing on it. And then the BFI curveball came your way. And actually, I think it linked up in three very interesting ways, which is obviously by right. I think personally, I think Penny should have been allowed to direct it, act in it, and everything, right? So you want someone who can come in who's got experience in the directing side to smooth the process, not like add a loud, shouty voice to someone whose vision is on the page because they wrote the damn thing. So I was already producing, I was already on board, I already loved it. And then this came up, and I think we chatted about it because of that, and we'd started writing another short together. And we're getting along okay on a creative level. And I've directed a few comedies that have done kind of quite well on the festival scene. So it all synced up quite well. I had an IMDb CV that was not going to give us issues with the BFI going, well, Penny, we know we forced you to have somebody, to join you on this journey. And you seem to have made your dog the co-director. How did that come at all? You seem to have hired your husband. What's his experience? It finessed that question, but it also meant we were already having creative conversations at a script level on something else, so we knew we could sync up quite well on that side. It wasn't just going to be one way or another. So yeah, that's how it happened. And then we parachuted in another good producer to sort of cover that, and now we've ended up all as multi-hyphenates, and the end is how it has ended up. We've all ended up with multiple roles, and that's really that's really it. And also, it was been interesting for me I don't direct a lot. Directing is probably the third thing I do, but working with someone who wrote it, is producing it, is the voice of directing it, and is also the actor. It's kind of it's been an interesting process, because giving a note to an actor when you're the solo director is easy, right? That's let's get on the same page and push this, get this synced up and get it through as a creative sort of entity. But saying to the person who is playing the role that has lived in their head for a very long time before it even got here, it's like not nervous, it's just it takes a slightly different way. And I think I became not a quieter director, but I think I became deliberately more of a filter for Penny's vision. So instead of saying I see it like this, I think it was more conversations. And Penny, correct me, you see it like this, but I don't think we have the time to get that. So what about if we do it this way, and you're still getting your vision without it taking a day to get that one shot? So it was more like I could become a mirror to Penny's vision, like ask questions, and if it's a solid answer come back, then we do it. And if it's creating conversation and we do it slightly differently, then we do it slightly differently.
Yeah, I'm always intrigued by how co-directors work, and then obviously you've got that other added level of Penny actually being the writer and the main lead and all that, and it's sort of like, should maybe try it this way, and it's like, no, I don't think we will.
Yeah. There was a bit of that, but that's great, because that's how collaboration is, right? It shouldn't be one person getting away, but also it shifted more towards I'm trying to create an environment for Penny's vision to end up on the screen, rather than me pushing through my own.
Yeah, because it's like, it's really difficult. Like you can't be on the monitor all the time if you're also like in front of the lens all the time. Like you physically cannot do both. And so it is like trusting somebody else's like opinion and their like taste level as well, to make sure that what is coming through, because just because something feels good, and I think obviously a lot of actors know this, just because something feels good in the moment, like it feels like it was a good take, or it feels like you're getting what you want to get across, doesn't mean that it's received in that way, like via the lens. And so it's then trying to work together to be like, okay, well, this is what I was thinking, it felt good, this is what we want to get to, what do we need to do to make that happen? And it's
yeah,
it's a process, you know, like in it, filmmaking is difficult anyway, but it's like, it's nice to be able to have, I think, because filmmaking is like collaboration anyway, and it's just nice to be able to feel like you have people that are in your corner, I think.
It went the other way as well. It's because Penny's just, I think, Penny, you've just made it sound like, you know, not all actors, when you're in your own head, you can't see the monitor. So if it feels good inside, it might not be good on screen. It also went the other way around, where you go, oh God, that was terrible. And I'd go, that looked really good. Like that is what you wanted. So can we get playback? Because it's worth you seeing that before you decide that it was terrible. So it does work both ways as well.
Yeah, I think we can be super critical as well of ourselves. So like sometimes we do think to ourselves that was a terrible take, but actually it was magic. Like, and there's a lot of magic in this shot. But what I wanted to ask a little bit about on was how things can often change when they're on the screen to when they're being filmed. And you mentioned before about sometimes having to maybe like say we need to rein that back a little bit because we might not get that. Was there anything that you wrote in the shot that you didn't get to do but you really, really wanted to do?
Yes. Yes. But mainly was the like the so we filmed it like sequentially. We filmed it because you have to, because the Fringe. So we had to film it in the order it was written in. And so we did it like, the first day was pre-Fringe, second day was like shenanigans, and then third day was the bloodbath. And it was the third day that was the most difficult day because it required the most choreography, and we had to do it. We had one shot, like because of the mess that the blood would make. Like we didn't have enough time to then do cleanup and then go again. So it was like we had to rehearse it so much and get everything to the point that it was going to be perfect because we only had one take. That meant that just ate up a lot of time. And so some of the kills that were supposed to happen on screen didn't. And then there was also supposed to be a bit more resolution between the so he's called Bob, but you don't actually I don't think his name is spoken. I don't think anyone's name is spoken. But the guy who comes in and turns the tap on and tells her that the tuna is in the fridge. There was supposed to be a bit more of a resolution with them at the end as well. But obviously we just didn't have the time. Like the time just disappeared. And obviously time constraints, budget constraints, like all of the usual things. But yeah, it was more killing basically.
Yeah, that had to simplify and get cut down. I think from my point of view, there was a really nice shot, and it was on the page, which is and it was written as the rotation between scenes where the camera did like a 180. And for love nor money, we had an idea of how to rig that, and we just couldn't get it to work on the day. It's one of those where time is so short that it's now eating into what should be a really simple camera move is now eating up, and you're going to lose essential scenes. Yeah. So you have to kind of shrug and go, really cool aesthetic thing, or the thing that drives the movie, the story. So that still makes me very sad that we didn't get to that. We did have the thing with the mirror, Penny, but actually how that's worked out, I really like it.
Yeah, one of our shots just didn't quite work out, like it wasn't as smooth as it was supposed to be, and so we had to kind of do a bit of jiggery pokery with it to make it
at its finest.
I never endorse fix it in post, but actually our post guys and an idea from Penny about how to sync 3 shots together to look like one and make it sort of magical with a bit of SFX and a bit of CG. Yeah, I really like that combination of shots now.
So I do need to ask one question, because I mean, I've asked a couple now, but I do have one in particular, and it's a little bit of a two-parter. The once we have the Fringe cut and the shenanigans and the bloodbath begins to ensue, we get a fantastic shot, which I just thought was unbelievable, of somebody's head getting smashed against the table quite a few times. Now, given that character that it's done to is a bit of an ass, how good did that feel to shoot?
So it did, and so I suppose this is a bit of the kind of like behind the scenes stuff, because our stunt coordinator Shanji would absolutely kill me, but we had rehearsed it. We had rehearsed it so many times, with the idea being that obviously it's a very light grip. You're not actually really holding the hair, and so that and then Danielle, the actor, she's the one that's in control. She's like controlling the whole thing. But just before we were doing it, she pulled me aside and was like, Penny, I'm really worried I'm not going to actually be able to do it and make it look good. So can you just grab my hair, just like as forcefully as you want? Can you just grab it and pull it and just yank me about, like, just please? And it was like, okay, if that's like, you don't have to tell me twice. And so yeah, and so physically actually doing it made it feel quite cathartic.
Also, the love of movie magic, from where I'm stood, you look at the mod, you go, that looks really good. That looks like she's genuinely driving her head down into that table. And then you hear about that after and you go, oh. But as well as that, when you look round the monitor, it's when you see a paper catering plate with a sponge with fake blood that she's headbutting so that the blood builds up every time she hits it. You go, and that's what filmmaking is. Sponge full of fake blood on a table.
Yeah,
I have to say, like, I really wanted to ask about that one, because of all the things that happened, that looked, like you said, and when you tell that story, of course, that's why it looked real as hell. And I was like, oh man, like, there's a few people I work with, I could quite happily do that too. But I think that's the charm of the short, isn't it? It's very relatable, and I think people, when they watch it, are going to be like, yeah, I've had days where I feel like that. And how have you found people taking to the short, you as audiences and whatnot, and how have some of the reactions been?
I mean, it's been mostly positive. I mean, I don't think people are going to say horrible things to our faces, so it's kind of hard to actually.
Good thing you're not going to be a Romford then.
I think people saying stuff to your face, but however, reactions in the room are nice. And we did get to go to the midnight screening at London Short Film Festival together, because Penny was back in the country. So we all went. And actually hearing the response, just the organic response of it, it's put in with a load of other shorts. Some are scarier, some are weirder, because it's a midnight sort of madness kind of block. Some are oddly funny, and you sit in the middle of that, so people are constantly adjusting their expectations, and for them to laugh and do sort of and laugh and reactions, real reactions, that's probably the best time. I think that was really good.
It's also, I think I've had quite a few people say that they weren't expecting the ending, which to me just like seems bonkers, because the whole thing, like, there's no other way that it's going to go other than like there. And I think the other interesting thing is whenever you say to people, oh yeah, like Sandra doesn't speak, that people they don't realize during it, she has no dialogue. She
has
says
no dialogue.
Yeah. Well, that's actually, that's absolutely right. Damn. But sometimes that's the best performance.
It is funny. We did have crew members during post-production. I'm like, well, of course, there'll be no ADR for Penny because Sandra doesn't have any lines. And people who were literally on set, who had read that script a number of times to plan for the shoot, went, I'm sure she has one line. I can think of one senior member of the team who said, I'm sure she has one line to me. And it still makes me smile.
No, literally, until you've just said that, that's not actually dawned on me, and that's crazy. That's so cool, though. That is really cool because I have this image of her when she's like standing in front of some of the other women and the boss and everything, where she's just been like, "You are such a twat," but no, she doesn't. That's fantastic.
It's all silent cinema by Penny.
Awesome. And but we're going to start wrapping up in a quick minute. But what's next for you guys? What are you working on? Is there anything you're going to be bringing us soon? Are we getting any more Sandra, or what's happening in the universe for you guys?
I mean, yeah, there's a bunch of stuff as always. I mean, I am in the market for a sugar daddy who's interested in financing films. So if anyone would like to hit me up, then I would really greatly appreciate that. But there is a feature version of Sandra that I have been working on. It's just kind of, more of her in a world, basically, but still all set within one location. And then the main other thing that I'm focusing on at the moment is another horror. It's a body horror feature that is written with my writing partner Ruby Abis, who is a phenomenal and incredibly talented writer. That is a snail body horror. It's about a woman who turns into a snail, and that's a feature that we're currently trying to kind of get off the ground and get made as our like co-directional debut. So again, if anyone is interested in snails, please hit me up.
Yeah, crazy. And Michael?
I'm also looking for a sugar daddy. No,
aren't we all?
At the moment, I would say, so I'm not looking to any new directing at all. It's complete coincidence that that's immediately after working with Penny, I promise you. But what we do have is I write solo and with someone else, my wife, Amy Clark, and we've just delivered a pilot to an Irish production company. We don't know if it'll go ahead, but it's TV pilot, 1 hour comedy drama, and the pitch is sort of Derry Girls meets Buffy the Vampire Slayer in West Cork.
I mean, that's a win right there.
It's legitimately called The Witches of West Cork. So we've got that, and we've also got a couple of pitches going into Radio 4, because apparently that's where your sitcoms are going in the next round. They're going to try them on Radio first. So we've got 2 separate ideas going into this commissioning window with Radio 4.
Awesome. And one question that I really like to ask my guests and creators and people who have made these fantastic projects is, any creator can tell me what went wrong on the shoot, what went wrong on the screen. When you look at it, when you watch it, you can tell me everything that's wrong with your shot. But I like to know, when you see Sandra Gets a New Fringe up on the screen with an audience, what are you most proud of that you got? That one scene that you think, we nailed that.
So I think there's one shot in particular that is probably my favorite, and for most people would probably be quite inconsequential, but it's the shot of when Sandra bends down and picks up the tuna cans and then pops up, and it's just like the pop up and then the like swing round to go and enact more violence is just, I don't know. There's just something about it that I think, it speaks to me. I don't know why.
I would say there's 2 things. I think every time there's a wide of the office, or we scan past one of the other office workers, or when Sandra's looking at them, apart from the time when Sandra is directly looking at them, it's how inconsequentially funny that office is. Like, you wonder what business is running from this office when you've got Noah playing his little retro squidgy water game. And you think, like, this is absurd, but it always makes me laugh. I can't help it. And then also when the headbutt in the mirror and it splits and she becomes one and that music kicks in. I mean, going through post-production on this film has absolutely ruined that Sam Fox song for me, because I hear like two bars of it and I was about to swear then, but I'm humming it for the rest of the day. but it's still, when it plays out in a cinema, that whole sequence and that music kicks in. I think that moment as a package is lovely.
I think as well, what you're saying about the little mundane things in the background, the little things that are kind of inconsequential, but that's what cements it for the viewer, sort of like, because we all work in that kind of environment and we all have those kind of things going on around us, and it's like, yeah, that actually looks like my office. So that's what cements it, and I'm glad that's something you pointed out. But yeah, so the Romford Film Festival, the 29th of February through to the 3rd of March, and on the Friday the 30th at 6 p.m, as part of a short film block, we are playing Sandra Gets a New Fringe. And I really hope everybody turns up to come and see this. I want people to really get to know this movie, because if there's one thing I can tell you right now is when the short finished, and I was talking about it with my wife a little bit later on, and I was thinking about it a little later on, I kind of just wanted to know what happened when Sandra got out the lift at the bottom. You know, like, what happened next? So please do, everybody. You're going to have an absolute fun time with this short. And Penelope, Michael, why don't you let people know where they can find you, where they can find social media, or whatever, anything like that? Just sort of pimp yourself for a second.
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram and Twitter and Seeking Arrangement. Penelope_Yeulet, just as it appears on the screen.
And I am on Michael Beddoes, just my name altogether, on Twitter, which is probably where you'll find me rambling more about film and comedy and TV stuff. And then if you're a big fan of seeing what I'm eating, where I'm traveling, or pictures of what me and my wife are up to, because it's mainly a personal account, there's Michael J. Beddoes on Instagram.
And of course, I like to put everyone on the spot before we go, because this will be going out before the festival. So we need to let people know that they have got to come and see Sandra Gets a New Fringe. But who wants to tell the people why they should?
I mean, if you're not sick of the sight of me from this, why not?
I would say please go and see Sandra Gets a New Fringe. Penny is withholding some key members of my family, and she will hurt them if you don't go and watch.
Oh, wow. That got dark.
Gets super dark.
Threats are great.
That's how they got me involved in the festival, to be fair. So, but yeah, guys, Romford Horror Film Festival, the 29th of February, right through to the 3rd. Or I say right through, it's 4 days through to the 3rd of March. Please do come down and watch all the amazing shorts and features that we have on show. Especially for me, come and see this one, because you're gonna love it. It's absolutely brilliant. Who doesn't want to do this to their workmates? And with that, I'll say goodbye to the listeners, and away we go.